Hey everybody, Nathan Moss with Mancademy coming to you with our, I believe our second podcast. Had to record this. Something just happened in the news that was disappointing, angered me. Had a lot of mixed emotions, feelings about it. Really took me some time to kind of sort things out. Initially, I laughed it off as, okay, it's another Clown World episode. Then sat with it for a little while, actually read the news article where it was promoted and went, wow, this is so wrong. This is so wrong. And then, eventually just in talking with my wife about it, talking with some other people, it's like, man, this needs to be addressed. And so what I'm addressing and what I'm talking about is the fact that the White House came out and called Easter Sunday Trans Visibility Day. To make matters worse, the Secretary of Education actually went and did his own announcement, swapping out his American flag lapel pin with the LGBTQ flag, and had a special message for children. Because as the Secretary of Education, he's in charge of the public education in our country, ultimately, which serves the children of our country. And it's just wrong. It's an utter attack on everything that Christians, believers, traditional families stand for. You take Easter Sunday, which is Resurrection Sunday, which is the day that all Christians across the world look at and recognize as this is actually the message of Christianity, the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. It's the victory he has over death, hell, and the grave, right? That's the celebration. That's actually what distinguishes Christianity from any other religious system across the world, one of many things, but is Resurrection Sunday, that Christ defeated death. He defeated it once and for all. When he was on the cross and he said, "It is finished," like he died on that cross, but the fact that he resurrected, he is alive today. That is one of the key distinguishing characteristics. And if you have any doubts or qualms or questions about that, you can check up Lee Strobel's book, The Case for Christ. The Case for the Resurrection is another one. You can take a look at that. There's so much evidence and proof over the resurrection of Jesus Christ, his appearance to multiple eyewitnesses. That's recorded. The fact that his disciples, if it was a false religion and they had somehow concocted a method, a scheme of stealing the body from the grave, rolling back the stone, paying off the Roman soldiers who were actually guarding with their lives, like their very lives were at risk by doing anything like that. And the fact that that is the best explanation that the people in the time period could come up with, it was, well, they stole his bodies. Well, then the disciples would have known that the resurrection wasn't real. Right. And so why would they have sacrificed their lives? And if you look historically at where the disciples end up after that, his original 12 apostles, the 11 apostles after Judas, they all died for their faith and horrific deaths, crucified upside down, boiled in oil. Terrible, horrendous deaths. If they knew it was false, they wouldn't do that. No one would. You don't die for a lie. And you can actually look at other false belief systems around the world, other cults, where late in life, the founder or the founding members actually start to recant some of those things. They actually start to go back on what they originally said was absolutely happened. Go ahead, check it out yourself. Don't just take my word for it, but look at it. But anyways, getting back to the news story, the White House calling Easter Sunday Trans Remembrance Day, Visibility Day. Just, wow, flies in the face of everything. Let's just rename it all. And why I say it flies in the face of everything is because in the Bible, you go back to Genesis and it's God creating. So this is Genesis 1. And it says in Genesis 1:27, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, and have dominion. Male and female, he created them. It's in the beginning. And so, folks, if you're listening to this and maybe you're just waking up to this agenda to call right wrong and wrong right, and maybe your moment of kind of awakening was 4 years ago when the entire world shut down, and maybe it was 8 years ago when there was censorship happening and things that were used to be okay to say weren't okay to say. Maybe your awakening happened way earlier when they were attacking conservatives, or they were attacking traditional family values in a variety of ways. I hope you're awake now. I hope you're aware that there is a concerted effort and attack on the traditional roles of men and women. Listen, men and women are different. Period. End of story. We're different. Not better, different. There are tons of things. And I actually had this conversation. I work with a young man who is on the progressive spectrum. He would probably say he's much more liberal. He has his own theories about gender, and we've talked about that a little bit. And he totally disagrees with the biblical viewpoint, 100%. And I just said to him one day, very point blank, and I just said, men and women are different. Males and females are different. And he kind of looked at me and was waiting for an argument. He goes, what do you mean by that? And I said, I can't have a baby. And I just looked at him. I just stopped. And he looked at me and he went, touche. That is correct. I went, okay, cool. We can agree there and move on. And so even people who might be championing gender rights or whatever you want to call it, okay, it's sin, it's wrong, it's against biblical values. It actually goes against even a basic biological argument, right? If you want to kind of take faith, take religion, take belief, and you're one of those people who says, well, just put that aside for a minute. That's faith. I don't talk about that. If you literally want to talk about it from just a straight biological, I'll even say the word evolutionary perspective, right? Survival of the species is procreation. You need male and female to do that in the human race. That's what you need. That's right. I said human race, not races. God created one race. We're all brothers and sisters. So this story, it at first I went, okay, whatever. I kind of discounted it, and then it just stuck with me, and it just really bothered me. And it's exactly what is the attack today. Thankfully, I don't have to do a lot of this research myself. Other people can do the research as well. My wife showed me a post by Charlie Kirk. I believe it was on Instagram where he put this. There are already 145 calendar days dedicated to the LGBTQIA plus nomenclature. 145. That's right. You can look this up, including the entire month of June is called Pride Month. The entire month of October is called LGBT History Month. And the entire month of November is called Trans Awareness Month. So why would the White House come out and name Easter Sunday, arguably one of the most important holidays for believers, for Christians, for what we're celebrating that day, the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead? Why would they feel the need to do that? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any logical sense, at least. It doesn't make any logical sense that there would be that many other days dedicated to that lifestyle, right? Especially when you actually look at the numbers and the percentages of the population who would actually claim to have that alternate lifestyle. Even if you lump in the people who are supportive of others having an alternate lifestyle, a different lifestyle, and a non-biblical lifestyle, it just doesn't make sense. And it is the exact attack on biblical, godly values on manhood, on womanhood, and that's why Mancademy exists. This we've shared some of the vision before. I want to share just a little bit more of this. Is about 12 years ago where God really spoke to me clearly on this, that this was something that needed to be out there, that specifically fathers and sons learning who they are, like their identity in God, and then working on those relationships, and I find it very interesting, right? I'm no theologian. I did not go to Bible school, but I find it very interesting that God chooses to call himself God the Father, the Father. So that men, that father title, being a father, is a calling. It's not just something you get when your wife is pregnant and you have a baby. Okay, it is a calling. So much so that God, the creator of the universe, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, decided to say, "Yep, that's my title, Father." That should bring some sobriety to your life. That should bring a little bit of clarity and like, whoa, okay, I'm a dad, I'm a father, and the fact that he calls Jesus his son, that even that title of son, right? And so that relationship, father-son, is super important, and so it's why Mancademy exists. Is this idea that we're going to come alongside of you, fathers, sons, parents. My wife just reminded me the other day, I might be a father with 4 boys, but she's a mother of 4 boys. And she has people reaching out to her and saying, what do you do with these teenage boys? I don't get it. And we have these conversations all the time. And luckily, we did not do it alone. We had some amazing people come alongside us in our walk as we were raising boys who had older boys who just said, hey, it's okay. This is how boys are. They're rough and tumble. They need to do something dangerous. We actually just had a conversation with one of my sons last night who played lacrosse. He lifts weights. He's always up for wrestling. He is the first one to try something new. He wants to ride in the rodeo. No, not like calf roping, not running barrels. No, bucking bronco. He wants to jump on the back of a bull that has been trained to throw people off of them angrily. That's what he wants to do. And he wants to buy a motorcycle. By the way, he also wanted to be in the military. So you kind of get a sense of who he is as a boy, right? Danger. He wants that. He craves that. God put that there. And so that's good. I have another son who is not that way. He's like, that is dumb if you want to do that. He's into other things. He does other things. We'll talk a lot about our sons, but he has participated in other sporting activities that when I'm like, oh yeah, my son does this, everybody goes, what? How did he get into that? I don't know anybody that does that. That's really cool. So even though children are different, fathers, you can breathe life into them. You can encourage them. You can point them to God. And it all comes back to that. Sorry, so I'm getting a little bit off track, but it all comes back to that identity. What is our identity in God? Well, we're men. What does that mean to be a man? Well, I can look in Genesis and just start there, and I can spend a lot of time in here. So God creates Adam, man and woman. Be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth, have dominion, right? So just one chapter over in Genesis 2, verse 15, it said, the Lord took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it. That's right. God creates Eden, the Garden of Eden, perfection. And he gives Adam a job. Tend the garden. Dress it and keep it. Work the garden. Then he says, you can eat of any tree, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat it, for in that day you shall surely die. And hey, guess what? Adam is not alive today on earth. He died. Then the Lord said, it's not good that man should be alone. I will make a helpmate for him, or a helpmeet for him. And then he brought all the cattle, to Adam to name all the animals. So when we look at this passage, it gives us a very clear outline of what God's definition of man was, the first man. Number one, we're made in the image of God. We're made in the image of God. That, like it or not, we're made to work, men. God gave Adam a job. It was perfection. He gave him actually a couple of jobs: tend the garden and name all the animals. But think about that. Think Adam had purpose. Adam felt an importance in his life. He actually got to name every animal. One day, I might ask him about the whole platypus thing, maybe. At that moment in time, I probably won't care. I'll just be amazed at being in God's presence, worshiping for a long time and raising my head and going, holy, 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 and just being laid out in the Spirit. That would be awesome. But Adam names all the animals. He actually gets to set the culture of human history. Like, think about that. In Adam's family, he was the father, and so he got to set the initial ground rules. Side note, just kind of being funny, he set the initial curfews, right? My dad growing up, he used to make the comment that, be home by the time it's dark. Like when he was a kid, it was be home when the street lights come on. When I was a kid, it's be home after dark, and it was like 10 o'clock, in the summertime. He's like, yeah, you should be home by 10. And I would complain, oh, Dad, come on, no way. And he's like, nothing good happens after 10. As a teenager, I didn't like that. But he was right. Like most of the trouble I got into was after 10 o'clock at night. There's a reason for that. We'll talk about that in another podcast. So God gives Adam a job. He gives him one rule. You can eat of any tree except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And in that day, you'll die. If you eat of that tree, in that day, you'll die. And so not only does he give him a rule, but he tells him the consequence up front. It's not just like, hey, do the speed limit. Just, the speed limit is 45, so you go 45. It's not that. But he gave him the consequence. Hey, if you eat of this tree, you're going to die. Now, let's talk about a consequence, right? This isn't like a natural consequence of, you don't wear protective gear when you ride a skateboard, and so you fall and you skin your knee or you skin your elbow, right? That's a natural consequence. Or it's not a parent-induced consequence of like, old school. If you say something you're not supposed to say, you get a bar of soap in your mouth. Okay, that's a parent-induced consequence. This is it's not one of those. This is like, if you eat of that fruit, if you eat of that tree, you're going to die. And death was foreign, right? It was perfection. So after that, God makes woman. And Adam says in verse 23, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She was called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. God actually said, I'm going to make him a helpmeet. Not less, not greater, different. From his side to come alongside him. Incredible imagery of what the identity of man was from the very beginning. Interestingly enough, this attack that we have on manhood today isn't new. It's been going on for dozens, hundreds, thousands of years. I can prove it. Think really hard. All the TV shows that are in mass media today. How many examples of good fathers are there? Go back to the 50s and 60s. When you still had traditional families shown on TV. Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver. Some of those very old time shows. And you had the dads were still the ones who knew things and fixed things and towed the line and were the disciplinarians. It's really hard to find one of those today. Just one example. It's very hard. They're out there, but it's hard to find. So I say this attack has been going on for thousands of years because even a little bit later, right? A little bit later on in Genesis, we see this attack on man happen because who does the serpent come to deceive? Does he go to Adam first, or does he go to Eve? He goes to Eve. He deceives Eve. And then Eve is the one who turns to Adam. And Adam also takes a bite, disobeying God. Now, this is important because fast forward into the New Testament, we see the hierarchy in a family that Christ says that he is submitted to God the Father. Husbands are supposed to be submitted to Christ. Wives are supposed to be submitted to husbands. And we know that the kids are submitted to the parents. And so there is a process, a method, a hierarchy that God has ordained in the family. When we go against that, we mess everything up. We actually allow Satan to have his way. And we see that example right in the very beginning. Satan went and tricked Eve first and got her to subvert the order that God had set up. Okay. And so what we face today is we face, the White House trying to rename a day Trans Awareness Visibility Day, whatever the proper name of it is. There's 3 whole months out of our year in the U.S. dedicated towards sinful lives. There's over 145 days already on the U.S. calendar. That doesn't include all the days that other countries or the UN has recognized. Every week, I would say, you read in the news another story about a male competing as a female in women's sports and the issues that come from it. Why is that? Well, it's because the attack on simply the identity of male and female. Why? Because God created us in his image, male and female. He created them. So if Satan, our enemy, wants to undo everything that God set up, what's he got to attack? He's got to go after that original intent for male and female. The original intent. So, went a little longer, I think, than I planned on this, but this story was just so big, especially happening on Easter Sunday this year, that I think there's no other way but an intentional attack on the traditional biblical family, on God. And what do? Right? We talk about all the problems. What do? Well, we restore the natural order. We redeem the time. We follow those biblical principles. We continue to learn from God, press into him, becoming more complete. He completes the work in us. And we build each other up and we encourage each other in that identity. So I want to encourage you to join the Mancademy. Enroll in Mancademy. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. We also have stan.store/theMancademy, where you can sign up as part of our membership and get tips weekly coming right to you. Also, you can follow us on the different social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook, where we post stuff almost daily on different tips, ways you can raise your kids, raise your sons specifically. My personal mission and vision is for fathers and sons. My wife continues to remind me that, moms want to know how to relate to their sons. And some of this stuff is just basic parenting. How do you raise your children? What do you do when your child does X, when your child does Y? And so we're happy to come alongside you, partner with you, mentor you in that, share not only our experiences, but be able to share the experiences of those that have come alongside of us in our journey of raising 4 boys so far in this world. So I look forward to connecting with you, and I look forward to hearing from you real soon.